Sometimes transfer sagas can go on for a very, 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 very long time, which is the case quite a lot of the time when Leeds United are involved. We will have an interest in a player, and then we will be pursuing a player, and you'll go through all the sort of phases that journalists say they're like, have an interest, pursuing, have put in an offer for, are keeping tabs on, and all that kind of bollocks. But eventually, transfer sagas do have a tendency to come to a head, and that is what has happened with the move for Michael Zetterer. As The Athletic are now reporting that Michael Zetterer is going to complete his move to Leeds United after a bunch of different dominoes fell in the right direction for Leeds United. So in this video I'm going to talk through who Zetterer is, his sort of level in terms of how well he plays, what that's going to mean for Leeds, and ultimately what this overall sort of story is, and what little bits of mechanism moved in order to make sure that Zetterer could make the move to Leeds United. And it's relatively simple, to be honest, in terms of the steps that were taken to make sure that Zetterer could move to Leeds. We all knew, since earlier in the window, that Perry was on the way out. Perry didn't seem particularly happy at Leeds, and whilst I wouldn't have minded him sticking around, a lot of fans would have. I was always of the opinion that Perry was an alright goalkeeper that hadn't really had the chance to show it, made a couple of mistakes, and was just bombed out, which I understand. Like, Daniel Farke has had his bad experiences with goalkeepers at Leeds United, so he didn't want to faff about and keep Lucas Perry in net just in case he made that one further mistake. Therefore, find him a move, which means you need to find another backup goalkeeper, especially since Darlow decided to piss off to Manchester United, which made absolutely everyone incredibly jolly and absolutely didn't despise him for it, because he's gone to be a third choice goalkeeper at a club that will be in the Champions League for about 15 minutes this season. But with those two goalkeepers gone, Leeds United needed to sign their replacement, and the player that we are looking at is Michael Zetterer, which seems to be on the brink of being done for around €5 million in terms of the amount that he'll be paid. It won't be too much, it'll be roughly, if I were guessing, what Lucas Perry was on. But in order for us to sign Zetterer from Frankfurt, Frankfurt would need to sign a goalkeeper from somewhere else, and the player that they were looking at was Noah Archibolu from Freiburg. What sort of happened with that one is they looked at signing Noah Archibolu, figured we can't do it permanently right now, and got a little bit flustered, which meant that it turned into a situation where they were kind of like, right, okay, we'll loan Archibolu, I guess, which obviously Freiburg kind of went, we're not the biggest fans of that, because what are we gaining for giving you one of the best goalkeepers in the league? To which point the negotiations started kicking in. And it was a long negotiation. To be completely clear, the Leeds United part of this was seemingly done like a week ago. It was a case of we were waiting for that previous domino to fall in order to complete our move, because we can't exactly sign Michael Zetterer from Frankfurt if Michael Zetterer is just kind of their number one choice goalkeeper and their new number one hasn't come in yet. It's kind of like we were waiting for Zetterer to come in to do Perry, and Archibolu eventually went on loan to Frankfurt with an obligation to buy, which is sort of the important part, for something like €13 million. Genuinely, they've got a bargain there. But this isn't a conversation about Archibolu, this is about Michael Zetterer, who has now been given permission to travel to Leeds United to complete his medical to be a Leeds player. Now, importantly, this one is going to be weirdly significant. Leeds United will need to have all of the paperwork and everything done for this move before noon on the Friday of the game week when you want to register him. Which means that we are very, 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 very likely to not see Michael Zetterer on the bench against Brentford. Not the best of things, because that means it's going to be James Trafford, and then if James Trafford gets injured, good luck Alex Cairns, you're a Premier League goalkeeper now, considering the turnaround on that is not going to be that quick. I've had a look on Flight Radar, I've not been able to see anything that's coming in from Frankfurt. I might have missed something. I've had a very, very busy day today/yesterday, because I record this at like midnight. But the general sort of look, in my opinion, is that he's not going to be in and signed and medically tested in time for that Friday registration deadline at midday. Maybe it's a case of we just sort of walk him out onto the pitch at half-time and go, look, we've got a shiny new goalkeeper, but it doesn't feel like he's going to be able to make it into the squad. In terms of what sort of role that he'd be playing in the squad, he's definitely a second choice. At Frankfurt, it was a very complicated situation where Zetterer was good, but not good enough to retain that starting position as their number one goalkeeper. He struggled at points, which is completely fair enough, that happens. Played 22 league appearances last season, 6 clean sheets, 5 games in the Champions League, which is a very, very solid sort of outlook, until you remember that in the Bundesliga, I think there's 34 league matches, and in the Champions League, you've got 8 matches, which means that at some point he was rotated out. Whether that was injury, I'm not entirely sure. I think it was just through choice, because he eventually had to sort of fight for his place as the number one goalkeeper. Serviceable goalkeeper, but we shouldn't expect him to be a world beater. He is someone that is very firmly the number 2 option, which is sort of fine by me. In terms of what this means for James Trafford, this means that he's got someone, again, reasonably older than him, 31 years old, that can act in that sort of mentoring role, because Zetterer has played a hell of a lot of football in his career. Like, someone like Alex Cairns has, for the past few years, been a backup, and there are certain things that Cairns can teach Trafford, obviously, because he's been around for a very, very long time, but Zeta has been more consistently in first 11s during that time, which means that he's far more likely to be able to sort of guide Trafford through those difficult moments. In terms of what this means for the rest of the squad, I think it's very, very good for the rest of our transfer business at the very least, because €5 million is very, very little. Very, very nice as well, because it means that we are not having that huge of an outlay, so we can spend bigger sums of money on potential left-back, potential striker, potential winger, whatever we want to fill in. At the end of the day, we've got until the end of the day on Tuesday next week, which is a decent amount of time, I think, to get a bunch of moves done, especially when we're very, very clearly working on a few of them. We've not heard that much on the left-back situation. That's the one that spooks me a little bit more than anything else, because we're not having that conversation, which means that we're sort of sitting here like, can we get a shift on there? Because otherwise it's just going to be a case of Gudmundsson, Justin, I guess, but you ideally want Justin on the other flank, or Jadon Leonu. And I've not got a problem with Jadon Leonu, but at the end of the day, you're going to need a more senior left-back in the event that Gabby does have a more serious injury. I don't know whether he's going to be back for the Brentford match. I'll be honest, we'll find out in the press conference that's happening later on. Maybe, because as far as I was aware, he was on the brink of team training, definitely not ready for the Forest match last week, but could potentially put back in. Clearly, this conversation has wandered into a different direction than the goalkeeper chat, but it's whatever, it happened. Also, somehow, Chelsea signing Martinez for like £7 million is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know how they've done that, but it's fine. It happens. I'm going to leave that roughly there, but as a quick summary, Zetterer coming in for a medical. If I can work out what plane he's on, we'll probably do a fly-along, because they're always fun streams to do with many, 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 many people. If you enjoyed the video, please pop a like in it. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Become a channel member, all that fun kind of stuff. I'm looking forward to Zetterer being at the club, but I'm looking forward to James Trafford starting basically every match this season. Anyway, gonna leave that there. Toodaloo. What a weird video. I kind of lost that part way through, but that's fine. For the people that are still here, I've been struggling making videos and doing streams over the past few days just because I can't get my head in the right place. Sorry about that. But if you could support the ones that I do, that'd be lovely. Thank you. Anyway, ta-ra.